everyone, and welcome to our next edition of Meet the Creator, Picture Book Edition. Today, I am very proud and happy to be talking to Oksana Lukashevska, and it's about her absolutely amazing picture book, this one here, which is called Silent Night, My Astronaut. It is incredibly powerful, and I'm thrilled to be able to talk to you about it today, Oksana. Is it okay with you if we start with a little reading from the book from you?
Yes, sure. And greetings to everyone. And I am very happy to be with you today and to start to read and to talk about the book, which is very important in my life in general. So I think it would be wise to start with the first chapter and then maybe to finish with another chapter from the book. The first day of the war, February 24th, and this is a good remembrance for us all. It's morning. Outside is bright and sunny, but we are in the dark. Mom is in the dark. Dad is in the dark. I am in the dark. Dark and scary. I overheard the adult saying that the war has begun. I'm scared, but I won't be afraid. That gives me astronaut doll to hold close. And I wonder, is there a super powerful astronaut in the sky, watching and hearing me from up above? I believe there is. My astronaut, keep me safe. Church bells are ringing, sirens are screaming, bombs are exploding. Hello, my astronaut. Can you hear me through all this noise? Can you hear me?
It's just wonderful. It's just wonderful. I said to you before we came on screen that I found your book very, very moving, and certainly brought me to tears on a couple of occasions. But for our viewers, the book is written in the form of a diary, and it talks about the first days of the war in the Ukraine. So I'm really glad that you actually chose that particular reading, because what I wanted to ask you was about the astronaut symbolism. Because, of course, our main character does feel there's an astronaut in the sky watching over them. And where did that idea come from, and what does the astronaut symbolise for you?
Thank you, Bev, for this question. This is a very symbolic question, I would say. A few things happened. First of all, as a scholar, I read a book about how children believe in a higher spirit, and the higher spirit can be different for everybody, right? It can be God, it can be just parent, it can be Santa Claus, like whatever, tooth fairy, like whatever the higher spirit is, it is a great strength for the child's heart. But at the same time, my friend sent me a kind of collection of the cards from NASA, and the war started, and I still did not pack that collection, and I did not look through that. And that astronaut was like, the face of the astronaut from the card was looking at me when I felt the less powerful ever. And I just felt like, okay, I don't know if there is God, if there is another higher spirit over there, but this astronaut probably knows. I felt my own naivety, and that gives actually a kind of naive, childish voice to me to write this book.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm guessing Silent Night is based on children's real life experiences? Did you have to conduct interviews with young people about their experiences?
I had a very great experience in general. As a writer, I offered my volunteer readings to whoever wanted and whoever was connected with children during those days. And I had about 24 meetings via Zoom with kids, and children were talking about the war, of course, all the time, and about their own experience. And there were a few families who actually lived in Kyiv that time, and they read the manuscript, and we agreed a lot of things, and we talked about a lot of things, and it said that the experience was the same, basically. So what I understood for myself as a Ukrainian, living far away, living in the US, but having my family in Ukraine and having all my readers in Ukraine, the distance matters and does not matter at the same time, because inside you feel sometimes brave, sometimes powerful, sometimes not brave, sometimes not powerful, sometimes naive, sometimes optimistic, sometimes not. So probably, and I'm sure we'll share the same spirit, and kids help me a lot with their conversations and with their being adultish in some way, telling what they saw, telling what they felt, and drawing a lot of pictures. Pictures also helped us.
Well, speaking of pictures, the illustrations by Katerina Stepanishcheva,
Yes,
I
right.
hesitated slightly, but I hope I pronounced that correct, are just stunning. I love the muted colour palette that was used, and especially the repetition of the colours of the Ukrainian flag, which comes up all the way through it. Were you happy with the way that your words were brought to life in those pictures?
I was very happy. I know Katerina for a number of years. We created some other very powerful but very happy books,
Yeah,
those for reading aloud and so on. But this is probably our first experience to work on such a serious book with such a serious matter. And Katerina lives in Kyiv. She stays in Kyiv now,
right.
and she has her own daughter over there. So her daughter actually read the manuscript as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what she said, and I remember how she said that this book was a kind of therapeutic experience for her, because that's what she felt those days. She wanted to work with national colors mostly, and then the manuscript came. And it was a kind of like, we did not even know if it's going to be published or how it's going to be published. She did a few illustrations just to show me, and then we found the really great publisher in Ukraine first, because the book was originally published there first. So yes, I was really happy with what she did, and I like this, again, childish and naivety style from Katerina, but at the same time, it's very mature.
It is. It is indeed. You can read so much into those pictures. Very much
Right.
so. Very much so. I think the thing that I wanted to say as well to those that are listening in or watching in, that yes, this is a picture book, but don't think of this as a picture book that you're only going to use with the very youngest children. There's a very wide age range of children that would benefit from reading this book.
Bev, I agree with you, and moreover, adults also benefit from
Yeah.
this. I had a meeting with a reading club of like Ukrainians who participate in a reading club which they created, and they never discussed children's books, but they discussed to pick this. They decided to pick this one and to discuss it, and they said that the most important reason for them is that they also felt a kind of optimistic, but they felt a kind of naive at the beginning of the war, a kind of without power and so on. That's why the book talks to them so much. So I think the book talks to a wide audience in general, for young children and for adults and for those who feel as children sometimes, that we all have to, right?
Well, yes.
Yeah, that's how we create our that's a powerful tool for our creativity. We create our spirit to be creators in general. That's what I want to say.
Definitely. And I also really appreciated the mention in the book of the support that came from all over the world via social media, because I think many millions of us felt there was nothing we could do but speak out on social media, but show solidarity in that way. And it was great for me to read that was heard in the Ukraine.
It was heard in the Ukraine, and moreover, I heard a very interesting thought about this. Somebody asked, "Why do you help Ukrainians? Why do you support Ukrainians? Why Emma Thompson spoke in Ukrainian words? Why other people speak about us in media?" And the answer was, because you speak about yourself intelligently and educated enough. You represent your history, you represent your country, and we know as humans how to keep our history, how to represent your country. You in your country, you do. I visited Ireland. My dream is to go to Great Britain in general and to go around. And the silliest dream is to see the Paddington station. Yeah, but you know the spirit, and there was a huge support from your country and from US and from Canada and from many countries in Europe. So we really appreciate that, and we understand that we stand as a humanity against this big evil. We are not only Ukrainians, but we all stand against this.
Exactly. Now, I know 10% of the proceeds from the book sales are going to a specific charity. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
That's a very great place. A lot of my colleagues do cooperate with this place, and what they do, they create different educational experiences for the children who need that. And a lot of entertainment as well, because in the wartime you really need to think about entertainment and how you can create something which will resemble life in a normal way, right? I know that Katerina was invited to go there later in the fall time and to do some activities, some illustrations maybe, or whatever creative activities they will come out together. And I'm very open to read to the kids over there, but we need to think twice if the kids over there need to read the book like this, or maybe they need something again which will uplift their spirit. And something connected with entertainment a little bit, which I also have.
So that particular charity, so I was just trying to remember the name. It's the Voices of Children Foundation.
The Voices of Children, yes, yeah.
It sounds absolutely amazing.
Yeah, we have this, yes, here in the book.
Lovely.
Yeah, they cooperate together as a publisher especially. So we are thinking how to, again, come up with something which will be directly connecting with the children. Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to mention on actually was the discussion questions in the back of the book, which I thought were absolutely amazing, because we've got in the back of the book, we've got a whole page here of questions for discussion and reflection. Absolutely amazingly sensitive questions. Did you come up with those questions? I think it's going to make using the book in a school setting very powerful.
We did come up with the questions together with the publisher, but also I think you'll be curious to know that in Ukrainian version we have a little bit different thing. Not the questions, we have 5 questions, but we have also the discussion of somebody that's a higher spirit, like whom do you trust in, and can you draw this here in the book, even so you can remember about this. So that's very interesting how the book in translation brought more questions into discussion, because it's really important to have introduction to the kids in other countries. And Ukraine, you don't need that, because all kids do know what we speak about. But I also love these questions. For instance, the one, how do you think Iya and her mother felt when they left Kyiv for home on Victory Street?
Yeah.
And right, you can like break these questions into phrases and discuss everything. What does it mean to leave your house? What does it mean to leave your city, right? And to go far away to different town or city on Victory Street. That's where, but actually I am from the Victory Street.
Ah!
Yes, it's not a symbolic thing here, but I think it brought some symbolism. My parents in Ukraine live on the Victory Street. So I was born in Ukraine, and I left Ukraine when I was 22. Now I'm 42. But I do travel back and forth there. And when I go to Ukraine, I go to Victory Street, always.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, so far this year, this is probably my favourite picture book that I've read. It is so powerful, and I think it should be in every school. I really do. But I'd like to finish on, we don't normally do this, Oksana, but I thought this would be quite fitting. Would you mind us finishing with another reading? If you could perhaps read us the day 5.
Yes, I will. And this is my pleasure. Here is the illustration from the book on day 5. The fifth day of the war, February 28th. There will be peace. My astronaut, this is a good morning. We had some sleep, we cooked porridge and did a workout. We did 50 squats. True, Mom stopped at 46, but I was able to finish. Then we heard a loud bang in the distance. Something exploded, and we found ourselves fighting again with nothing but heavy thoughts. My astronaut, do you know what we need? We need stories, courageous stories, funny stories. We want to laugh so much.
Incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for that, Oksana. Absolutely love the book, and I hope it has all the success it deserves.
Thank you, Bev, and thank you to all our readers and the future readers of this book. My heart is with you, and thank you for the support.
Hi everyone, and welcome to our next edition of Meet the Creator Middle Grade. And I am so happy to be talking today to Jasminda Bilan because we've met each other many times in the past, and I like to think we're friends already. And we're going to be talking about her very exciting, fast-paced middle grade story, which is called Nush and the Stolen Emerald. So lovely to see you here, Jasminda.
Oh, lovely to see you too, Bev.
And is it okay? Would you mind starting us off with a bit of a reading? That would be lovely.
Absolutely. I'd be delighted. Okay, here we go. Chapter 1. Kingdom of Jaisalmer, India, in the middle of the 19th century. The Thar Desert isn't always hot. At dawn, as the peach sun is still tucked in its bed, the air is ice cool. I grip my fingers tight around the smooth leather reins and cry into the near morning. Wahoo! Jolo jolo, Aryan! It's a race to the mountain. My twin brother is a good rider, but I'm better, and I feel a mischievous smile fly to my lips. The ground is hard, and Tanu's hooves thunder against the compacted sand. I shoot a competitive glance over my shoulder and urge Tanu on towards the mountain. Aryan's horse is not far behind, the sound of his snorting reaching me through the still dark dawn. I'll beat you this time, Anushka. Aryan's words are faint, but determined in the whipping wind. My heartbeat quickens beneath my ribs as I concentrate and pull at the reins, my hair loose and free, billowing like clouds behind me. The smudge of the mountain is still a way off, and lately Aryan has been improving his time. I sit low on Tanu's slick back, merging myself with her, and we become a new creature made for speed. The shadow shapes of craggy bushes zip past, and we race together, getting closer, until finally we reach the looser sand and plough our way through to the foot of the mountain. As I turn Tanu around, the golden sun cracks the morning sky, and I wave at my brother as he flies towards us. His white horse rippling like a mirage against the sun. I dismount and press my cheek against Tanu's. Bravo, my Mawari queen, I whisper, wiping sweat from her flanks and leaning in. We take a moment. In the desert, you live by your wits and talent. There are no birthrights here. Aryan arrives noisily some minutes later, his horse breathless and tired. I'm catching you up, he smiles, landing on the ground beside me. Keep practicing, and maybe one day we'll come in together. Okay, little sis. He throws an arm around my shoulder. Only little by minutes, but we know who's superior. I elbow him gently in the ribs. You should ride bareback. The saddle slows you down. A royal Maharaja riding bareback? What would people say? He mocks. Now that the sun has risen, the heat of the desert whooshes over us, hot and dry, and we know we have to get back to the palace before we begin to bake. We lead the horses to the small oasis, sheltered by 3 tall palms, where the water is cool, and we drink together before setting off again at a slower pace. I squint into the far distance, where dark silhouettes brood on the horizon. There are the tents again, I say, holding my hand above my eyes to get a better look. They always seem to be there lately, agrees Arian. What do you think they're doing? I'm not sure. Do you think it's the East India Company? Papa's always talking about them, replies Arian. So it could be. When we arrive home, I use my special hairpin to deftly open the lock on the outer gates. We sneak the horses back to the stables, handing them to the grooms who don't ask questions. Maharani Ma, our mother, has already told us 100 times that now we're getting older, this wildness must stop. And besides, there's the danger of the East India Company soldiers, under the strict control of the Governor of India, Earl Dalhousie.
Wonderful, wonderful. Do you know what? I could sat here and let you read all morning and I'd be very, very happy. But I suppose I best ask you some questions. So, Nush and the Stolen Emerald is, of course, a work of fiction, but I understand it's partly based in fact. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes, of course. So, as happens when you're a writer, I was writing book 4, Xanthi and the Ruby Crown, and I wasn't meant to be writing, even thinking about book 5 at all. And I was doing some research and I came across a portrait. And there are a few things that I had lots of questions in my head. So this portrait was of a Maharani called Victoria Gaurama. And this portrait was painted by the royal artist who was called Franz Xaver Winterhalter. And the portrait hangs actually in Osborne House on the Isle of Wight. Mm-hmm. And there were lots of things. I was like suddenly really drawn to this this character, or should I say this princess. And it was the portrait of Victoria Gaurama, and she was the first Indian royal to visit England, to visit London, and to stay in Buckingham Palace. And she was the Queen Victoria's goddaughter. So I found all these things out afterwards when I did a little bit of research into it. And I was really surprised. I was surprised that I had never heard of her. I was surprised that her presence wasn't really publicised very much. And so I did a little bit more research and I found out that she spent a long time in England, and she came to England when she was 11 with her father, who was the Maharaja of Cork. And at that time, there was quite a lot of conflict between the British East India Company and the Maharajas in India. And so I really, really wanted to bring this story and this moment in history, shed some light on it. And so it was kind of quite difficult, really, to know how to do it, because although Victoria Gaurama had happy moments, on the whole, her life wasn't terribly happy. And particularly this portrait shows her as looking really sad. So what I did was I created my own Maharani. And so the inspiration came from Victoria Gaurama. And I really wanted to shed light on this moment in history. But I also wanted to create an exciting adventure. And I wanted to create my own princess who had some things in common with Gaurama. The fact that she comes with her father, and the fact that she spends a lot of time at Buckingham Palace, that's all kind of similar. But then there are lots and lots of things. As you say, it's a work of fiction, but it's very much based. Its inspiration comes from something something factual.
I was really surprised myself because I'd never heard of her. I'd never heard of her at all. And as you say, I then went away and did a little bit of my own research. And it was fascinating because I'd never heard mention of her before.
Yes, and I think this is the reason why historical novels are really important.
Yeah.
So, like same as you, Bev, so I was asking myself, well, why don't I know about her?
Yeah.
Why don't children in this country know about her? Because when we're taught history, we're only taught little parts of it.
Yeah.
And history, as we know, is always depends on who's telling it. It's a story at the end of the day. If we have something happen today and we all tell our versions of it, everybody's going to tell the story in a slightly different way. But you're absolutely right. We haven't heard of Victoria Gaurama. She was an important person. She had her portrait painted by the royal artist. So it's not right that, that children don't know about her, and that the world doesn't really know too much about her either.
Well, they will now. They will now. So what would you consider are the main themes in the book? And what inspired you to write a book with these particular themes?
So I would say, when I write, I don't necessarily think, oh, I'm going to write a book about X, Y, and Z. But obviously, when you build a story, themes come through. So I would say, like, the two strongest themes in this book are female empowerment and colonialism. And shedding light. It was really important for me to shed light on what was happening in India at that time and what was happening in England at that time, and also on the role of the British East India Company, who had been sent by Queen Elizabeth in the 1700s, and a very kind of their ship, it's very kind of romantic. Their ship was called the Red Dragon, and they sailed for trading in the beginning. But obviously, when they arrived, they realized actually, rather than just trading, they could own the land, and of course then your profits are much more. So it's kind of quite interesting to shed light on that particular part of history. And also, you asked me why I wanted to write a book like this, and it's a little bit of what I said previously, that it's kind of in the shadows. And so I wanted to shine a light on this period in history. And I also wanted to be able to put people into the picture who are often left out. Yeah. So I wanted this book to be a window into the past. And I also wanted it to be a mirror for children who perhaps think, when they look into history and the history that they're taught, they don't necessarily see people like themselves in the past in England, and that just wasn't the case. So our idea of the past often is skewed and often isn't accurate, and I think it's really, really important to give children the opportunity to discuss things that adults often feel uncomfortable about. So I think, when adults feel uncomfortable, they either just don't talk about it, and often teachers don't know how to talk about this periods in history that are really sensitive. And so and I think children have a right to talk about it, to discuss it, and work out for themselves, what they feel is kind of like right and wrong. And one of the things that I did in the book that I thought worked really well was I have the royal children. So when Nush goes to the palace, she makes friends with the royal children, with Bertie, and particularly with Princess Vicky, but also with the groom, because she's a very open person. In the extract that I read, she's very aware that there are places where birthrights don't mean a thing. So you do have to be a good and just ruler. You do have to be responsible. And so there's a moment where she talks to the children, and and they, you know, and they have their points of view, and they're all able to put their points of view across, and hopefully, you know, what this does is it helps children to see different points of view, and then make up their own minds, you know, what's right, what's wrong. And this period in history is also very nuanced, and you know, and it's complicated, and so I think it's really kind of empowering to have a story. Of course it's fiction, but there are really key things that are factual about Nush and the Stolen Emerald. And also I know schools do Victorian England, and so this would really kind of like fit with looking at it, looking at Victorian England from a slightly kind of different point of view, because as I say, the Maharaja of Cork did visit Queen Victoria. He came to ask her for help. So that, you know, that moment's there. So it's all about sort of shedding light on darker corners, and about not sort of hiding behind words. I think quite often, you know, we sort of hide behind words. I was at the V&A recently, just doing some kind of research, like you do for, you know, like maybe another book that I might write. And you know, I think this kind of debate has been in the public domain for some time, you know, about the Elgin marbles. You know, it isn't literally, it isn't just around Indian artifacts. And it just strikes me that that there's a lot of work to do to explain things. You know, you can't, and you know, you can't just have something and then just say, well, this is what it is, because there's a whole story behind it, and how does that happen to be there? And it's important history, you know, and it's and it might be uncomfortable, but you know, we do need to open it up, so children understand. It's about understanding and connecting, which you know, that's what I really want to show with this book, is that the way Nush connects with the royal children, the way she makes the friendships, and what they have in common, you know. So we were talking about themes of female empowerment. So Vicky is the eldest. She was a really clever girl. She spoke lots of languages. She was far cleverer than than Prince Bertie, you know. So she really does not understand why, you know, why could she not be queen? And of course, you know, Nush feels the same, because she has a twin brother, and being a twin, they're literally born at the same time, so there isn't that sort of older or younger. And so, you know, they really kind of connect with that sort of common thing that they have, that they share.
I absolutely love Nush. So did Nush come to you fully formed, or is she made up of aspects of people that you know?
That's a really interesting question. So as I say, I did a lot of research into Victoria Gaurama, and I kind of got there's not a lot of information about it, but I got a real sense of the fact that she wasn't in control of her destiny. And so when I created my character of Nush, I wanted her to be feisty. I wanted her to be clever, and I also wanted her to be kind-hearted. And I wanted her to give her her own agency. So she doesn't accept, you know, she doesn't accept the fact that she is the girl of the twins. She doesn't ever accept that, you know, there isn't a possibility that she might be able to rule. And throughout the book, you know, she's always trying to she raises it with her dad. You know, she sort of like brings it to the fore with her brother, and I won't do any spoilers, but you know, she doesn't take no for an answer. No. So partly, I think she did kind of come fully formed, because it was almost like I had the image of Gaurama, who was, you know, unhappy and just not in control, and having to just fit in with other people's ideas of what she should be and what her future might hold. And also, you know, one of Nusha's big quests is to try, if she can, to bring back this emerald which the East India Company took from the kingdom. And it's almost like this emerald isn't to do with monetary value in the way that it would have been for the East India Company. This is about the heart of their kingdom. This is about bringing it back so she can heal her kingdom. So she's very, as well as being, you know, very able, like she can ride a horse, she's good with a bow and arrow, she's athletic, you know, she can climb, she climbs sort of up the side of Buckingham Palace at one point. I wanted her to be active. I wanted her to be athletic. I wanted her to have all of these qualities. You know, obviously, you know, she's not a perfect person. And I think when you're creating a character, you do have to give them their flaws as well, so that they're believable. You know, she's kind of like a little bit like the showgirl, you know, she's a bit sort of like full of drama, and probably, you know, when people read it, they might think that she outshines her brother, and he's already quite, you know, when you're the one that's going to be the king, the Maharaja, yeah, you know, you that's kind of quite tough. But, you know, if you're not the one, if the expectations aren't on you, then of course, you know, you can sort of shine. And so, you know, there are moments where she's not unkind to him, you know, they're very close, but, you know, she does kind of overexert herself sometimes in that relationship. So yeah, there will always be kind of sides to a character, but I really loved creating her. And I also kind of had in my head when I was creating her, she says this to her dad, you know, that I could be Maharani, I could rule, because I can't remember the exact date, but in the 1400s in Delhi, in India, there was a princess Maharani called Razia Sultan, and her father decided that she would be the ruler. She would be the, you know, she would be the ruler of Delhi. And so, you know, that happens. It does happen. It has happened. You know, we have Boudica. You know, we have these very strong female, powerful queens, and I wanted people to kind of see that could be a possibility, and has been a possibility. So yeah, I wanted to show both girls and boys, you know, that this can be a possibility.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to us, Jasbinder. And as I say, hopefully we'll be able to see you in the future when you've brought new books out. But thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me, and lovely to see you all. Bye.